Good morning and welcome to the fourth day of the 53rd FINEX Annual Conference. The theme of the seventh session is Role of Media in Reshaping the Future. May I now call on the MC for this session. He is a managing partner at Goriseta, Africa, Cauton and Saavedra. Attorney Mark Goriseta.
Good morning, fellow FINEX members and guests. Welcome to Day 4, the 7th session of the 53rd Annual FINEX Week Conference entitled Inclusive Disruption, Achieving a Sustainable Future in the New Frontier. Our session today, which was organized in cooperation with the Media Affairs Committee, will focus and discuss the role of media in reshaping the future. Joining us this morning to speak on the topic are established and respected women in their own fields. ANC News anchor Karen Davila Santa Ana and Google Philippines Industry Manager Ms. Carissa Herrera. Attorney Annette Gozon Valdez will join us later for the panel discussion. To start, our first speaker is Ms. Karen Davila Santa Ana. Karen is a multi-awarded broadcast journalist with 27 years of television and radio experience in the Philippines, having won the much coveted TOIM, or the Outstanding Young Men Awards for Broadcasting in 2008, and TOWNS, the Outstanding Women in the Nation Service Award for Broadcasting in 2013. She was also chosen as a Young Global Leader of the World Economic Forum and the Hall of Fame awardee with the Anak TV Awards, where she was consistently considered a top role model for the youth for 8 straight years. Karen currently hosts Head Start, a news talk show that airs 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. on the ABS-CBN news channel, and is the news anchor for The World Tonight, the longest running newscast in the country, telecast on ANC and the Kapamilya channel. She likewise volunteers for Habitat for Humanity and World Vision. Ladies and gentlemen, let's all welcome my very good friend, Ms. Karen Davila Santa Ana. Karen, welcome, and thank you again for accepting our invitation despite your very busy schedule. Karen?
Thank you so much, Mark, and thank you so much to everybody who is with us today. I can see that there are over 100 participants with us this morning. My topic for this morning is about the role of media in reshaping our future. And I'd have to say that's a very broad topic because I belong to the news department. So I've been a journalist for over 28 years now. And media isn't just news. Media is entertainment as well. It's educational programs as well. It's the use of different platforms to communicate with the public. But let me just perhaps focus on my area of expertise and exposure, which is the role of media news in reshaping our future. So that's more specific. I'd like to start with a personal experience I've had during the 2016 elections, which was, I think, the advent of what would change in the country in terms of getting information and in terms of campaigning for the 2022 elections. And we saw it in the 2016 elections. So this is a personal experience. As you know, each TV network moderated their own form of debate. So GMA 7 had one, Channel 5 had one, and ABS-CBN had one. I was the moderator of the ABS-CBN presidential debate in 2016. And this debate, we had a town hall format. That was the format that was assigned to ABS-CBN. And all our questions, being the moderator, were cleared essentially by the COMELEC because of a segment we had called Fast Talk. So to cut the long story short, so President Duterte, who was mayor then, who was part of that debate, of course, was one of the candidates I questioned, and my partner questioned other candidates. So we were assigned to specific candidates. After the debate, after that particular debate, I felt I did a good job. I prayed before doing the debate. My bosses congratulated me too. But something I would say different happened in that particular debate. And you know, hosting debates aren't new for journalists. It's par for the course, as we say. My good friend, Kuya Kim Atienza, who's now moved to GMA 7, that's a side story, called me and said, Karen, have you opened your social media accounts? No, why? So the debate was in Pangasinan, and this was maybe 11 p.m., 12 midnight. Don't open it, Kuya Kim said. Don't open your Facebook, don't open your Twitter, don't open your IG. And as you all know, when someone tells you not to do something, you end up doing the reverse, right? So I opened it. I was not prepared for what I saw. It was a barrage in my Facebook, my Twitter, and my Instagram after that particular debate of people wanting me, and I'm not exaggerating, wanting me killed, raped, gang raped. If I went to Rockwell, I would be slapped and kidnapped. Telling me na bayaran ako, that's why those questions were asked in that manner. Saying kaya may anak akong autistic, ay dahil ganito ako, you get the point. And it gets so bad to the point that ABS-CBN measured the amount of hate messages that came in the ABS-CBN platform in a span of an hour. So 67,000 I want Karen killed messages and hate messages or raped within a span of an hour. And my Facebook was just so hurtful that in 2015, the debate was early 2016, I had to shut it down. So my Facebook remained shut down for a period of 5 years. I reopened it recently when ABS-CBN lost its franchise. And I shut down my Instagram, I made it private. And my Twitter, I technically shut it down for a while. And I didn't know what to do. In 2016, nobody understood what troll armies were. A social media army did not exist in the campaign sphere in the Philippines. In China and in the US, social media armies were already alive, but not in the Philippines. You know why? Because candidates campaigned through television. They campaigned through radio and television, which are institutional media outfits. And that's the kind of campaigning I understood, or many of my colleagues understood. You would buy advertising on ABS or GMA, or you would be on radio, or worse, you would pay a corrupt broadcaster to actually help you through the campaign. And usually media outfits, media owners would not know. But that was the old way. When that happened, there was an effect, a psychological effect, when it came to a particular candidate, on how you would question this candidate, on how you would view a candidate, how would you approach a candidate. It had an effect. So how does social media reshape the news, reshape your future, reshape how you think? If there's one thing that social media has taken away from us, I would say it is the integrity of thought. Your thought process is independently yours. Media has a factor in your thought process. What you would see on television is a factor in your thought process. What you would see in a survey has a factor in your thought process. But never has the effect been so strong to the point that you ask yourself, am I wrong? Because of being bullied, barraged on social media, or the influx of information that doesn't even give you a time to think. Is this correct? Is this information right? Are these people real? Is this really the sentiment of the public? Because you are on social media. So let me read to you, these are some of my notes. In the press freedom ranking, the Philippines ranks 134, number 134, which is quite interesting considering in Asia, we are viewed as having the freest press. So if the Philippines is ranked as having the freest press, why are we 134 in ranking? It could be so many other factors. The factor of fear, which is a factor that's seen in many media outlets and journalists today. TV still remains the most trusted medium, and yet social media is the most powerful in terms of usage. The internet penetration in the Philippines is at 62%, but you have more than 80 million Filipinos today using social media. So with ABS-CBN shut down, you do have GMA7 as the network where the source of information is most vital today. And you do have the rest, which would be social media. And what is the difference? And I want you to know, I'm not speaking from a point of anger or bias or anything. I'm speaking from a point of experience and fact. What is the difference of information coming from an institutional medium that has had distrust for a period of time compared to, let's say, a social media medium, regardless of what medium it comes from? An institutional media platform, even if it is imperfect, still goes through the discipline and a process of accountability before information is vetted out. Institutional media platforms were gatekeepers of information for a long period of time, which is part of the reason why news icons and media icons are made, because you open your TV and you have no choice in effect on what is thrown at you. If you don't like what's seen, then you can change the channel. That was competition before, but it is not like that today. We're seeing a change of behavior in what the Filipino watches, what the Filipino believes, because it's not unique to us. It is all over the world. But what is unique in the Philippines setting? Media landscape in the Philippines is actually filled with contradictions. There's digital communication that is a disruptor in a sense of the word. And yet, because our socio-economic inequalities and the gap remains so huge, you still need terrestrial TV. What do I mean? It's a question between load or rice for the very poor, and they are of equal ranking. So you can never do without television that is essentially free. So what is the role, in effect, as I've given you, in effect, the realities when it comes to the Philippine setting? Is terrestrial media or institutional media important today? I would have to say more than ever. More than ever. We're seeing today many people watched on Facebook, on YouTube, and because of a lack of information and knowledge, it's believed to be the norm in how you get information. It's not the norm. It is becoming the norm. But the truth of the matter is institutional media still can determine and shape the way the country will go if it uses its responsibilities well. And I'm not speaking right now as an ABS-CBN journalist. I'm speaking as a journalist. The company that I'm in, ABS-CBN, is not perfect. I'm not their lawyer, so they have their own lawyer to defend them. But let me just say that being a journalist is a responsibility that many of us don't take lightly. And I say this over and over again. I have never taken payment, a bribe, PR money for any of the interviews I have done, whether on television or on radio. And why is that important? Taking any kind of financial remuneration for any interview with a politician does not make you fulfill or do your job well. You could be a nice person, but it corrupts the profession. There are many ways the profession is corrupted, but then you end up not doing your main responsibility as a journalist, number one. Number two, are journalists biased? People are biased. No person on the planet doesn't have a bias. So the word of be objective, be neutral is misunderstood when it comes to the job of a journalist. A journalist provides context to information. So I'll give you a perfect example. If your story is about rape, what does it mean for a journalist to be objective? It simply means you get all the sides to a story, but the story will still have a context for you to understand the story. People think journalists are stenographers. We just write what's said. He said, she said. That's the job of a typist. That is not the job of a journalist. A journalist in the darkest of times then is perceived to be biased, but it's the wrong use of bias, okay? In the period we are in today, there's been a low trust with journalists and a high trust with vloggers. And this is what's shaping opinion today. This is the country we are in today. Is that dangerous? Absolutely yes. But I'd have to say it is part of the democratic process. Can any vlogger, any unit, any platform show anybody they want to show? Absolutely yes. But as a media entity and a news division, are you required to be more? Absolutely yes. This is where critical thinking comes in, and where the phrase, everybody is entitled to their own opinions, but they're not their own set of facts, come into the picture. One person was asked, what's the job of a journalist? The job of a journalist is when someone tells you it's raining outside, you don't take their word for it. You actually open the window and look, is it actually raining? That's the job. The job is to recheck, to challenge, to be contrarian, even to when you question. Because if not, then you're swallowing up a set of information handed to you and you take that as truth. And this is the hard part of the job because it's unpopular. When I entered media, I didn't want to be a media person. I wanted to be a fashion designer. And I always say this when I speak in church settings and I give my personal testimony. Every job we're in is a calling. It's not just to get a paycheck. And why people are effective is because they believe they've been called to a higher purpose in that job. That is what I believe. I'm not the best in my field. I'm not the most brilliant. I don't have the best voice. I am not the most popular in my field, but I know what I have been called to do. And it is to do my job with integrity and in a way, truthfully. Christian Amanpour said, this is her CNN plug, "I don't strive to be neutral, I strive to be truthful." And that phrase alone can raise a lot of questions. Because if you don't strive to be neutral, then you're biased, obviously. Because the opposite in the dictionary of neutral is biased. But when you strive to be truthful, it will lead you to a bias. Because the truth is not neutral. The truth is one thing. It's one thing and another, or one thing and a few others, but clearly it is one thing. And that is the challenge of media today. So how can it reshape our future? I believe to a degree, institutional media was called to a period of self-reflection in how it handles the news. What stories did it choose to come out? I know for a fact that ABS-CBN had to go to a period of self-reflection. When it lost its franchise, whether or not colleagues admit it, I think the way to be right, the word is to be neutral but out for the truth. To be open-minded, that you don't even let your own biases get to you, is you go through a period of self-reflection of how was the news handled. So that's one. The other issue is, what do we do in the face of so much information coming out, where social media controls the information and starts to control how you believe the future will come out? I'll give you a perfect example, and it has nothing to do with the media. What you think is more powerful than what is truth. Do you know that? In PR, they call it perception is reality. In your own mind, what you believe is more powerful than what is true. And in the recent Pulse Asia survey, the biggest shock in that survey was you had one candidate, Senate President Tito Soto, 10 points ahead of President Duterte. And I don't want this to be political, but it is the perfect example of how your thinking could be wrong. Analysts have said, to someone who was viewed as invincible and unbeatable, a survey comes out that shows otherwise. And it is the same with what you think. Because of the information that is handed down to you in Facebook, in YouTube, and on Instagram, and even on Twitter. It's noise. It's noise. Vetted information will come from, and I hope you don't think I'm biased here, institutional media outlets. Yes, there are biases. If you talk about the US, CNN is very liberal, Fox is very right-wing. But you know where they stand. But at some point, you do know information is vetted. And I think that's what's crucial. When you say, how will it reshape our future? The bigger question is, can social media reshape Philippine elections, and which spells the future? And the answer is yes. To a degree of how much, I don't know. There's no studies that have come out yet on the degree of the influence. But is it enough to influence? Yes. And that's the future. We've seen it in the US, and we've seen it in other countries as well. Several studies have been done on it. So I think it is a call for institutional media to actually be better, to take their job more seriously, and to be, I would have to say, to be bold and fearless. It's a very Christian term used, but to be bold and fearless in doing what is right. To do what's right isn't easy, especially in the face of social media today that dictates and tells us and questions our integrity of thought. That's what's lost. And I think I would like to end with that so I could open to a few questions.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Karen, for that. What a moving talk. No? Thank you for sharing with us your experience, especially in media and social media. This allows us, well, me, to discern and analyze, well, my or our thought process on what we see and read in social media, especially on how it affects our day-to-day lives. Thank you also for reminding all of us the importance of integrity and truthfulness, especially in this new age. With that, I understand that, Cars, you have a show you have to leave by 10:30. So on that note, we'll bring in our moderator and chairman of the Media Affairs Committee, Ms. Wilma Miranda, to ask you some questions before you leave. Thank you. Wilma?
Thank you, Mark. I just have a few opening message. These are indeed exciting times. The pandemic may have dampened the spirits of people in the whole world, but we're now seeing another kind of industrial revolution. The digital revolution includes the digital media. The rising of media, especially digital media or social media in this crisis, and most probably even after this pandemic, is greatly influencing social, political, physical, spiritual, psychological lives of people. And this pandemic has hastened and made more obvious that we're indeed in the middle of a technological revolution, and more so in the middle of a rising digital media influence in society. So we will start with Karen first, because I think she has an appointment, as Mark had said a while ago. I'm so excited interviewing a journalist who is also interviewing other people and popular speakers of that. So anyway, we'll go ahead with the question. The first question for Ms. Karen. With the proliferation of fake news and troll farms, do you think with the rise of digital media, we can still be optimistic about a promising future for our next generation? Of course, you said a while ago that it's becoming worse with social media. And what can you suggest your audience on how to handle, especially the trolls?
I think let's start with number one. None of us in this forum are digital natives, right? None of us. Meaning we woke up and then suddenly you've been given a gadget and you know how to use it. Those are what we call digital natives. And our children are digital natives. They barely watch TV. So when you give them a gadget, they know what to do. So their behavior is very different. So your first question is the danger of it. And I'll give you the biggest challenge. Television is relatively regulated. What do I mean by regulated? Well, number one, if you don't have a franchise, you can't even air. So that's how regulated it is, right? So that's one. Number two, even with advertisements, in terms of content, there's some form of regulation. What you can show on TV, what you can say on TV, that's a regulation. Am I correct?
Yes.
A journalist, for example, when a newscast comes out, the word is not regulation, but it will go through a process, a vetting process, wherein before information comes out, it went through some form of accountability. Social media has no regulation whatsoever. None. Regulations in social media are just coming out today. It is being discovered. They're learning along the way. So will we be able to experience the best fruits of social media? The answer is no. We are experiencing the good along with much of the bad. Maybe our children's children, by that time, the platform would have been so studied that they would experience the best of social media, like how the best of TV is experienced in modern times, right? There's some way to guard your kids about watching certain programs. That's just one of the many regulations technically with institutional media, even in newspapers or radio. without any form of regulation, this is where the battleground is. What is true? When you're reading something on Facebook, you will be shocked that someone like my father, my mother, believe everything that's written on Facebook. And I know they're not alone, right? When you read about from everything, COVID is just a flu, or the Yamashita treasure, or name it, anything under the sun, and it comes through a page. My parents believe it. And it takes extra effort on my part to say, why are you reading that? You should read this, right? So your first question was, how do we deal with that, right? That's the biggest challenge. And in every election, that is the biggest challenge. You will see many, many, many candidates, for example, come out with their own information that would not have passed television. Even if a candidate would pay for a spot, an institutional media outfit will not allow all kinds of information if it's untrue. But that's not how it is in social media. In social media is, bahala ka sa buhay mo, figure it out yourself. And I feel that's quite dangerous. So that's one. How do you handle trolling? If you're the victim of trolling, there's block, mute, report. That's the basic, right? So you need to use these features. But you have already politicians who have come out and sued. That's one. I think you have a senator that actually sued 2 YouTube sites and channels, and even sued Google for it. I know you have a Google speaker. And why is that? Because there's no recourse. On television, if a public official was, I wouldn't say the word attacked, but unpleasant information came out regarding a public official, there would be the right to reply. Maybe not that moment, because he can't be contacted, but at some point in time, it is the responsibility of the network and the journalist to seek that person's side. There is nothing like that on social media. Social media is a one-way street wherein each have their own voices and their own channels. But in that point, it is information coming out from all aspects. Is it entirely bad? Of course not, because it is an opportunity for people and candidates who otherwise won't have access to bring out information about them in this free medium. But it can be dangerous because of propaganda that is also put out there. And that's the danger in the upcoming elections. That's two. What's difficult about trolling is a regular viewer cannot decipher if it's a troll, because trolls are real people. They're not robots as you think. They're real people on computers too. So what's difficult is you may think something is organic when technically it's been manipulated to appear organic. And we've seen it. It's used by a lot of brands. A lot of private companies do that if they want to be talked about, and a lot of products. And that may seem harmless when it comes to products. But when it comes to already information that has to do with, let's say, matters of news or matters pertaining to the elections, then that's when it hits a very gray line of danger, which is why Facebook is facing the the accusations it's facing now.
Okay, so I agree with you totally, because I've also researched on that. The most reliable form of media communication is still television and newspaper. And of course, we also have, you broadcast over YouTube channels for your television shows. And we have also digital form of communication in newspaper. So I think we really
Wilma, I just wanted to correct. I think the term is not television, but institutional media in a way, because you have institutional media on social media today. Because in the future, the future is really digital. There's no way to go. But in the Philippines, I believe television will stay for a long time because of the social inequities we have as a country. And this has been discussed in many forums, and also internet penetration. So television is just relatively more accessible than you being on your phone and needing data and needing an internet connection. But institutional media is also on digital today, Wilma. So GMA is quite big on social media. ABS is big on social media too. It's a platform.
So there's really a gap. There's a big gap in the country right now because there are still people who cannot access the digital media and more are terrestrial TV, right? So terrestrial TV is still it will be useful still in the future because of still of the gap of people of in the Philippines. So I think how can we bring integrity and trust to digital media? You know, not
you can't. Okay, so let me. Digital is a space. Then digital media would be many. It could be, for example, you have GMA and ABS and Channel 5 and many other networks. The Inquirer, for example, is digital. So your question is, how do you bring trust? I think institutional media all over the world, and ABS-CBN as this as a challenge too, after the 2016 elections, is regaining trust. Because there's so much information out on Facebook, so many platforms that have come out, that you essentially have the country polarized into who do I trust? When in the past, they would trust institutional media. So maybe let's put something neutral. They trust the Inquirer or the Philippine Star, right? So we're not talking about TV. But now, you have social media users who won't trust institutional media like that, and yet will get information from unknown sources, is the better word. How do you trust? It's really, well, number one, it's really a process of education. I mean, it takes so much in a way to also educate Filipinos on the difference between institutional media and regular platforms out there. It's very difficult for them to tell. And even for educated people, it's difficult to tell, because unless you are able to see different sourcing, the media is familiar to you. For you, information is information, right? So that's one. And I guess a cultural shift of the politics we have today that's very divisive. So media tends to be, I wouldn't say a victim, but media is part of the divisiveness in the culture.
Okay, I would like to ask your thoughts about the latest news, a controversial issue. I don't know if you want to answer this, but of course, this Francis Hogan, a Facebook whistleblower, says that Mark Zuckerberg company knows how to make Facebook and Instagram safer, but is not doing anything to make the necessary changes because, according to them, they were more after profits. According to her, they were more after profits than before people or the welfare of people. I'm curious, what are your thoughts on this latest controversy? Why do you think there are still many trolls in Facebook, despite their claims that they're making this social media channel safer? And
I think because digital, I think because digital is a new platform. I would say there's truth to that accusation, whether or not that's really the intention of Mark Zuckerberg, but because I don't know him, but I think that because digital is a new platform, so it's a space where business is learning, because television is not new. So what needs to be learned on TV from analog to digital, that was a shift in learning new things. And digital now Facebook is just digital, period. So it wanted to be an open space for ideas to flourish. The intention is quite good. But along with ideas flourishing is all types of ideas. That would mean, for example, if we go extreme, you would have extreme left, extreme right, extreme this, extreme that. You could have technically racists on the platform. You can have Nazis on the platform, because if you really go to the intent of a space that all ideas can flourish, that's what it means. Until they've realized the effects that while freedom is an essential right, freedom is not absolute, right? So that's what it's learning today. So as I've said earlier, we are taking a lot of the bad in social media along with the good, because digital is good. You know, it's a different way to disseminate information. But will we see it in a way, kumbaga, in finesse? Not, I don't think, at least in my lifetime. I believe that because it is growing and expanding, I believe that it would be many generations to come where we will see that actually evolving into something more responsible.
Of course, this is a question which you might be subjective of, but be as objective as possible. I know you can be objective, you have a balance. Is it safe to say that the ABS-CBN was successful after pivoting to its digital platforms? That is after stopping broadcast operations last year, especially during this pandemic? Will the digital platform was just in time?
Well, Bilma, number one, I'm not an expert, just to lay the lay of the land here. I'm not an expert on the digital media of ABS-CBN, right? But ABS-CBN, for example, because of its base, what has happened is when it moved to digital, the television viewers absolutely would subscribe to the ABS-CBN platform. So it has a very huge following in terms of entertainment and news. And I would have to say, so does GMA. But I think the better question is, are institutional media's big outfits, big companies like ours, harnessing the best of social media, of digital? And I would have to say no. I mean, not pertaining to ABS alone, but Wilma, it's because the behavior of an institutional media outfit is different from the behavior of social media. You have to remember, big platforms on social media now are all startups. It's a very startup behavior. They would operate with 1 people, 2 people, 3 people. They're quite quick. They're very raw. And which is why that's why information isn't necessarily vetted. And institutional media outlets, regardless of whether it's local or international, have to go through a change in company processes, roles, and behavior to actually make the best. And I'll give you one international example. Along institutional papers, for example, the Financial Times is the most profitable in terms of institutional papers that has moved to digital. And why is that? It's because they had to change. They could not bring in old methods, old ways of doing things into digital, because it's quite different how digital moves. So can ABS do better? I'm sure the fair question is all institutional media outlets can do better, but it already has a base. It has a strong base. So I think, if I remember correctly, ABS-CBN News is 12.2 million subscribers on YouTube. I'm not familiar with Facebook, but the entertainment network has something like 39 million. So these are numbers that are, I mean, similar, I'm sure, to GMA even in terms of just getting your base and moving them to digital.
Okay. We'd like to entertain a few questions from the Q&A box. The first question is, Ms. Karen, thank you very much. It is 2021, less than a year to 2022 elections. Would you believe that we have sufficient time to learn from the 2016 experience?
I love that. I love that question because really only time will tell. I think what happens sometimes is we underestimate the Filipino voter. We do. And when you look at the 2016 elections, President Duterte was voted out of hope. He won out of an excitement for an inclusive Philippines. I've read several studies, and that was all over the world. And is that a bad thing? The answer is absolutely not. The election of the likes of leaders like President Duterte and other leaders like him all over the world, actually, it mirrors the need. It mirrors a need of the population on what kind of leader they want, right? And what they were hoping for. So the question is the 2022 elections. I think offhand, the 2022 elections is more complex than the 2016 elections because you had Mayor Duterte then who had a distinct voice. It was an exciting, distinct voice that was different from his opponents. But if you look at the candidates today, many have similar voices. And the only distinct voice that has so far, what analysts have said, is that of former Senator Bongbong Marcos. He is quite distinct because of where he comes from in terms of his politics and his points of view. And the rest are quite similar. So what's interesting in 2022 is what messaging do people want? What do the Filipino people want to hear? And that's where I feel institutional media plays a big role because it should come in with an open mind, but still a critical point of view on each one. Each candidate should be challenged, because you are looking at, this is quite existential, the 2022 elections, because we could go one way or completely the other. So I feel the role of institutional media is more important than ever today. And also because you do have ABS-CBN that's shut down. So campaigning will be centered on, of course, lesser media networks and more money pouring in now to social media. I know so many people that have started their own troll army, troll PR, social media PR, name it. I mean, things that didn't exist when it was just TV. So these are the challenges, I think, today.
I think that's part of voters' education that, we should, as you have mentioned a while ago, perception, reality, that we should be able to educate people what are the real or the truth and what is perception, reality, so that they can really vote wisely in the next election. I think we can entertain one more question before you go, because I was already told it's a few minutes before time.
Okay, all right.
How sure are we, institution and media, are not also bad? Those who has money to rob the powerful, to spend and lobby, who has the space to be seen and heard?
I thank you for that question. And absolutely, at the end of the day, institutional media are owned by people who have business interests. And this was, as you know, it's not a secret to all of you, it was one of the main points of the hearing on the ABS-CBN franchise. And I do believe that after that particular experience, I would have to say that owners, whether it's the ABS-CBN owner, I don't own ABS-CBN, the owner of ABS-CBN or the owner of other media networks, it's a period of self-reflection too on their role when they own a media company, right? In other parts of the world, I want you to know that big business also owns media entities. GE owns ABC. Disney owns, I think, NBC. And Rupert Murdoch owned at one point, was it Fox or something else? But to own a media outfit, you'd have to be a business person because it's expensive to own a television network, right? So that's one. But the self-reflection comes in the role that they play. I think that for all of us, there's so many questions that have come up. Should they own other businesses? Should they lobby to close contracts? Should they even choose a presidential candidate? Should they lean towards one? I mean, the Philippines being a smaller setting, you do know that CNN outright endorsed Hillary Clinton at one point and lost. The New York Times openly came out and endorsed Hillary. But these are for advanced democracies. In a smaller space like ours, I don't think the Filipino people are ready for that kind, where the institutional media moves in that realm. So that's one. Is institutional media perfect? Absolutely not. In news alone, I'd be the first to tell you that corruption is prevalent. And it would be very hard to tell if a commentator, a news anchor, in news, what can an anchor do, right? I mean, you're reading the news. But in radio, for example, it's very difficult to tell if a commentator is paid or not. And that's institutional. So within our own ranks, these are challenges that we've faced for a long period of time. And there have been efforts to clean our ranks or to correct our ranks. And this is management is, of course, instrumental in doing this in terms of cleansing your own. So no, institutional media is not perfect. All I'm saying is, at the very least, there's some form of accountability.
Yes, and I hope that endangered species like you are journalists with integrity and can be able to maintain a balance, while doing your job as a journalist. We will still be able, the public will be able to help preserve those kind of endangered species like you as a journalist. And we have so many questions here, but I know you are pressed for time also because of another appointment, and we really have to let you go. But thank you so much for sparing some time for Media Affairs Committee and for FINEX Annual Conference to be with us today. We hope we could invite you in the future again on some other occasion.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Wilma. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Annette. I see you, Ned. Mr. Ongshako, I see you. Michael Benluan, Carissa, thank you. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you, Karen. I'll see you soon. We'll see you soon. Thank you.
God bless you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Wow. So we'll move on now to our next speaker. Our next speaker is the industry manager of Google Philippines, Ms. Carissa Herrera. Carissa is a marketing and business development practitioner. Her product management foundation, built through over 12 years of experience with leading telecommunications and finance companies, both here and abroad, has allowed her to develop a strong understanding of customer needs, which continues to fuel the work that she does today. As an industry lead at Google Philippines, her work revolves around helping partners, specifically in the finance and fintech spacecraft, implement and scale their digital strategies. She is a graduate of the Ateneo de Manila University and received her MBA from the IE Business School in Spain. Carissa is passionate about music and travel and enjoys learning how to cook on weekends. Let's all welcome Ms. Carissa Herrera. Carissa, the virtual floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mark. Thanks for having me here today. Allow me to just pull up my screen. so that I can share with you my presentation for this morning. Can you all see my screen?
It's loading. Okay. Okay. Go ahead, Carissa. Looks good.
Thank you so much. A very tough act to follow, but I hope that what we'll be able to share for the rest of this morning is something that you do too find insightful and relevant also, specifically in the area of finance and financial services. Again, good morning, everyone. My name is Carissa, and I am an industry manager at Google, where, as Mark said, I really work with our finance and fintech partners in really shaping and scaling their digital strategies. And it's a real pleasure to be here with you this morning to share our point of view really on how media, particularly Google in this case, plays a role in shaping this new frontier, right? And we talk about it as the future of digital innovations, digital strategies. But really, based on what we are seeing, is that we are very much really living amidst this already today. And our general take on that really is that businesses such as yourselves, financial institutions as well, are really the shapers of this new frontier, and that Google as a platform helps enable this for the way forward. And so with all eyes on digital today, we already know, right, that our marketing playbooks as we used to know it will cease to exist in the same manner and will really continue to evolve, challenging many of the existing rules we may have known about building brands and establishing customer relationships. And as we go through this next presentation, which we've aptly titled as The Great Reset, From Disruption to Transformation, we will be sharing some key insights from our latest economy, so that's economy report for 2020, and our latest consumer study on the financial preferences, behaviors, and changing motivations to lend insight into really this lasting impact, the transformation that we are seeing of this rapid digitization that we are experiencing in the country today. So particularly in the realm of digital financial services, something I hope is relevant for you all this morning. So this is a journey that we will embark on for the next 20 to 30 minutes. So we'll be kicking things off with the flight to digital, where please allow me to share with you and look back into the massive digital adoption we continue to experience as a country and how this landscape is really rapidly evolving today. Our next stop will be on this great reset, where we will dive deeper into what we are seeing, specifically in the area of finance, and touch on some key opportunities for financial institutions and businesses as well today. From there, we will wrap things up with a big leap, as we call it, where we will be sharing some resources and actually externally friendly free tools that you can reference regardless of where you are in your digital journey today. Our objective this morning is really to both lend insight into these once-in-a-generation mindset shifts that we are witnessing and help your brands gear up for long-term success in an effort to respond also to today's evolving consumers. So kicking things off here. So when we talk about this flight to digital, it's really about recognizing the accelerated rate in which people across the region have come online. And this slide particularly shows the growth of total internet users across Southeast Asia based on our research, which has grown massively in 2020 alone. So over the course of the last year, so over the course of 2020, particularly in this case, we have witnessed over 40 million new internet users come on board across the region as compared to the 100 million users that were onboarded from the period of 2015 to 2019. So imagine the level of growth that we are seeing there, which effectively puts our region at 70% really of our region's population online, making being online a mainstream behavior today. In addition to new online users, COVID-19 actually has led to an acceleration of digital consumption as users have tried new digital services for the first time. And what we've found based on our research and highlighted on this slide is that on average, 1 in 3 digital service consumers are new to the scene. and that this shift was actually driven by the pandemic, so driven by concerns surrounding safety, security, initial barriers to mobility as well that we experienced around March and April of 2020. And allow me to clarify this term a little bit. So we have internet users, so people who go online, browse, consume content, use social, or watch YouTube perhaps. However, what we are actually referring to here is what we call digital service consumers. So people who actually go online and pay for various services that range from, let's say, food delivery, bills payments, educational service, for instance, your Zoom subscription as an example. So people who are actually online and transacting. So there's actual value that's being exchanged in this case. And if we break this down further, what we see is that this shift to digital is not a behavior that's restricted to Metro Manila and key cities nationwide alone, but actually has very strong representation from non-metro areas. And in this particular case for our country, representing 54% of those that are new to digital services. So of the 37% I shared in the previous slide, 54 are actually coming from non-metro areas in the country. And so this slide really strongly emphasizes how indeed digital has become mainstream. So not a thing of the future, but something that has already ingrained itself very deeply into the lives and behaviors of many Filipinos today. And this behavior is further manifested in the number of hours spent online per day by Filipinos for personal use. So take note, this is actually for personal use. And on this chart, we compare the hours spent online per day on average, pre, during, and post our first ECQ in the earlier part of 2020, marked by the gray, light blue, and dark blue columns, respectively. And we see that across the region, despite heightened values during our first ECQ, we see that these have actually settled to slightly lower, yet a net positive growth versus pre-lockdown levels, with the highest values actually reflected in the Philippines at 5 hours of use per day for personal use alone. And this is data taken out of 2020, post our very first ECQ. So most likely much higher already today. And of course, part of this massive growth, right, has also really been driven by the activity that we are seeing on the YouTube platform today. At present, YouTube has over 45 million adult users active on the platform. And over the course of the past year, we have seen a 25% growth in overall watch time. So that's really how much content is being consumed through the platform. And this is actually only comparing 2021 versus 2020 alone. If we look back into the growth from 2019 to 2020, directly post the very first lockdown, this was actually already recorded at a 50% increase in watch time. So this is entirely incremental to that, entirely incremental to the growth that we've seen and witnessed over the past year. So in addition to this, if we compare also the amount of uploaded content in 2020 versus pre-pandemic levels in 2019, we actually see that this has also increased fourfold. So really a growing creator ecosystem that we have here. And this growth is really fueled on both fronts, right? So we've established on the previous slide that the significant increase in the number of viewers and watch time, but let's not forget also the rapidly growing creator ecosystem that we have in the country today, which fuels this as well and has really democratized video or video creation and consumption in the country. So by just zooming in on Philippine-based creators on this particular slide, we see that over 3,000 channels have over 100,000 subscribers today. We have over 250 channels with over 1 million subscribers and an amazing 12 channels, imagine that, with over 10 million subscribers active on the platform today. And you can only imagine sort of the breadth of topics that we're able to cover through these different creators in this ecosystem. And in 2021 alone, actually, we've seen a 50% growth in recipe videos and content. So I'm sure at one point over the course of the past year and a half, most of us have searched for our own versions of how to cook blank over the past year. We've also witnessed an 80% growth in skincare related content, perhaps a lot of people rediscovering their skincare regimen, and role-playing games, different forms of entertainment at home. But it's important to note that really it's not just limited to entertainment that we are seeing on the platform. And I've actually highlighted here 5 established and rising finance content creators that we are seeing on the platform today. And the content really ranges from various topics, from sort of hard-hitting investments from the likes of Chinky Tan of Chink Positive with almost 2 million subscribers at this point. Martin Germo, of course. We also have, very interestingly also, channels like How to Adult, Thea C. Bautista and Nicole Alba, who actually talk about building your first set of savings, learning how to invest, learning about insurance from the point of view of younger people, from the point of view of, let's say, college students, as an example, in an effort to really drive stronger financial literacy and awareness amongst the youth today. And so summing this up, indeed, this digital acceleration that we've witnessed is really sticky, and majority of Filipinos will really continue these behaviors even in a post-COVID state. We also see today that Filipinos are online with a purpose, be it the search for that easiest recipe for dalgona coffee at home, or learn a thing or two really about learning how to make that first investment, or maybe even simply how to pay your bills online. So which leads me into this next portion. And on this section particularly, allow me to zoom in a little bit more into the specific area of financial services. And so just a little bit of a look back here. So the concept of banking actually started centuries ago in an effort to secure assets, perhaps gold reserves, in the confines of guarded buildings. And at the risk of oversimplifying it, this is still, in a way, present today in the form of bank branches as we know it. And we went through the electronic age where ATMs were a big game changer, and electronic payments and remittances were slowly embraced also by the public. And there have been many, many, many other milestones in this evolution. But what we do want to highlight is that today we actually find ourselves once again in the cusp of another great digital migration. So we hear today, many of us hear about e-wallets. Maybe we've used them as well, digital banks. Maybe some have even tried out virtual currencies, perhaps. And while many perceive this to still be a thing of the future, what we do want to emphasize is that we Filipinos are actually already in the midst of this shift today. And I always like to say, imagine back then, right? When the electronic payments were first launched as a new capability, or maybe even the ATMs, and how these maybe were perceived in the past as a thing of the future back then. However, today, we cannot imagine our world without them, right? And in the same manner, we look to these shifts as the next big game changer in this space. And perhaps in the future, the same can be said. So if we look closely into the internet economy within Southeast Asia, we have actually seen a 5% growth despite the headwinds that the pandemic brought to the region. So this is actually what you see above is on a regional perspective. And that mix has really evolved from online travel being a bigger contributor in 2019 to now majority actually being driven by e-commerce. And we see that over the next 5 years as well. And this is actually also true specifically in the Philippines, which is marked below, where the internet economy grew 6% during the pandemic, driven by the need of Filipinos to purchase both essentials, non-essentials from home while staying safe inside their houses. And this was also driven by the massive growth that we've seen in terms of online retail transactions. And this growth is something that we actually forecast to be sustained at an accelerated pace over the next 5 years at a 24% CAGR on the regional level and 30% specifically for the Philippines. On this next slide, and having said that, also on a regional level, however, we are seeing massive growth opportunities for digital financial services across the region. At present, there's already been an increase in demand for remittance, insurance, and investments as people really have recognized the importance of securing health, life, assets, and also protecting themselves and their families against further volatility that this pandemic can bring. So there's really also more demand expected in the area of lending and digital payments in the coming years. On this particular chart, we actually highlight the significant growth of finance app utilization in the region. So this specifically factors in mobile banking applications and not the likes of your e-wallets. So this 53% growth in monthly active users is particularly for mobile banking apps that we are seeing today. And we see that across these 6 countries that we were able to survey, um, there's really been a more conscientious effort in being able to lend that air of helpfulness by different financial institutions by providing an app alternative when the lockdowns were initially launched across these different markets. And we see the same in the Philippines as well. And we've talked earlier about, sorry, I think I skipped the slide. We talked earlier about this sustained shift, right? And it's really one that goes beyond just the sphere of these new consumer habits and these accelerated shifts to digital services that we've witnessed over the past 18, 20 months by now. But what we are seeing that's actually most interesting today is that digitization has penetrated various aspects of the overall financial ecosystem in the Philippines. So in the past, we may have said that consumers were ready to perform digital transactions, but perhaps businesses were not e-commerce ready, right? So it didn't directly meet that demand. Or perhaps businesses were ready, but let's say maybe regulation was a few steps behind. Today, however, we're actually seeing significant shifts and significant strides made on all these fronts, really ensuring the sustainability of use moving forward. And this has actually been further validated by a recent study that we conducted in partnership with Kantar and Sixth Factor earlier this year, where we spoke to the three key banking segments, right? So we spoke to representatives from the banked, underbanked, and unbanked, and really to try and understand the changing financial priorities and perspectives. And one of the findings that came from this study is that majority of respondents coming from these three key segments all started doing financial transactions online due to the pandemic. So it was really driven by the need to be able to do this from home. And 80% actually have said that they would prefer doing their banking transactions online. So sticking to an online behavior moving forward, primarily driven by convenience, which they've by now learned to experience. So it's really enjoying that easy and convenient method of being able to perform these transactions digitally. They're built a certain level of comfort also with the method moving forward. And when we talk about evolving financial priorities, another interesting trend that we are seeing online today from searches actually is that Filipinos are interested to know more about how to manage and grow their finances. And we see that over the course of the past year, we've seen an overall increase of about 60%, so over 60% on searches across a myriad of these different finance-related topics that range from the areas of banking, investing, insurance. And what we learned from this really is that Filipinos today want to be more informed of the different banking services available to them, and they want to be more prepared also. They want to know their options, and search has actually become a very integral role in this journey of discovery, in this journey of trying to understand these different financial products that they are seeing in the market. And as Filipinos lean more into digital financial transactions, we've also seen an increase in searches for mobile apps, which you see on the first column. And based on what we are seeing, we see here some examples that we're sharing. We see a 750% growth in interest towards a call financial app, something perhaps searched by your more financially savvy consumers. But at the same time, we see a similar increase, also 750%, for the likes of a Cebuana app at the same time, something perhaps searched for by your broader market or your broader audience. The second column actually shows the consultative approach that people have also taken today when searching. We see here significant interest for information such as KYC, account opening, bills payments, and even the basics of investing. People have come online today to seek help and guidance in the area of finance. And we highlight here, right, particularly that as business leaders and members of various financial institutions, it's very important that we be able to meet consumers with relevant information online when it matters most. So on this journey of discovery for them, when they type, for instance, how to pay Meralco with GCash, how to make money in stocks, then we meet them with the right information to help guide them on this more sustained path forward in an effort of driving deeper financial awareness and financial inclusion in the country. It's also important to be mindful, and we show some of that here on the right-hand side, so the third column, that Filipinos are also taking the extra step, making that effort to look into their own form of due diligence by reading about reviews, as an example, and doing their part to really learn more about different brands and services that they are learning about online. So you see that in terms of different bank reviews or different product reviews here. So all of these actually have resulted to more educated and more conscious Filipinos that have become more open to utilizing technology today to perform financial transactions and really navigate the next steps in their financial journey. And we see today how more and more Filipinos search for really more convenience also by turning to apps. So we see that with 36% of those that have responded to that in our survey. We see also Filipinos looking for faster, safer ways to doing things like online account opening for the first time. They also aim to further grow their income by searching for things like ideas for new businesses, right? Which has also grown quite tremendously over the past year by 110%. And particularly on this slide, if we zoom into money transfer as an activity, as an example here, it's quite amazing to see really how this has actually already been performed across different age brackets and varying household incomes. Indeed, really, this behavior is now mainstream and one that will really most likely be sustained as we move forward into this new frontier. So allow me to wrap this segment up, particularly by reading this direct quote, which is actually feedback that we were able to gather from one of the consumers we were able to speak with during the course of our research. So I'll read it. It's the negative one on the upper right-hand side. So I'm not that tech savvy. This bank, which we will not name, has a lot of requirements. And I needed to scan my card or ID, but the scanning wasn't able to capture it and it won't get processed. So I was like, since you made it so difficult, I just dropped it. And so at this point, really, we really want to highlight the roles that we can play as brands to ease these experiences and extend digital helpfulness towards our customers when it really matters most, right? On this particular critical path of this user as an example, this consumer as an example. It would have been great had she been met by something with better user experience as an example, or even some form of digital customer service to be able to help ease that particular transition. And now this example may specifically, right, be limited to the area of digital banking, but even if we look beyond finance and as business leaders, how are we able to really ensure helpfulness even through our digital platforms to better guide Filipinos during these critical points across the various paths to purchase? And hopefully to lend some insight into what we can do for this segment, allow me to introduce some helpful and actually free Google tools that you can use to jumpstart your digital journey today. So on this particular slide, we actually show Google My Business, which is actually a free tool that you can use to really get you started in making sure that your business has an online presence. There are a myriad of things that you can do with Google My Business, one of which is to create a website for free, a very basic website at that. Another thing is to kick off any, let's say, advertising that you do want to test out for your website, and just the basics of making sure that you have the right information and that you meet Filipinos with the right information when they do search for your products online. So these are just some of the ways in which Google My Business can help. So you can create that store listing for yourselves, for your businesses. You're also able to engage with customers and help build that loyalty, that customer loyalty digitally by responding to reviews, collecting customer reviews as well. And a form of analytics as well to understand your customers better, to see how many people click through when they see photos of your establishment, how many people actually make an effort to click on the mobile number that's listed there for them to call and get through on your website. Another thing that can be utilized is Google Search. And so one of the features that you have now is actually on your search bar. You can type in something, for instance, For my example here, just last night, I typed how to open, and these were the top of mind things being searched in the area of finance for Filipinos today. So a lot of it was opening bank accounts online, or maybe these are my historical searches as well. Another thing that is accessible to the public is what we call Google Trends. So you just simply type this on your search browser and you'll be directed to the right page where you can get a deeper understanding of different consumer needs and the changing and evolving interests that are available. We've shown an example here. So I just compared over the past year, Filipinos, at least people searches in the Philippines in relation to lending. Apologies for that. And in relation to savings as well. And we really see that in blue, lending really peaked post the initial onset of the pandemic in the country. So we see that at around March of last year. And so you can do this with a myriad of different topics. You can look at it to search for, let's say, the top of mind recipes that Filipinos might be interested in today, the top of mind concerns that they have in terms of KYC or opening an account online, even the top of mind entertainment that they may be interested in also. And lastly, we also emphasize the role of safety and trust in building and how we can really help address these also by building improved user experiences online. And speed is a very important part of creating a seamless user experience. And many times I know that we blame our internet service providers when our websites are not performing optimally. However, there's a lot of checking that we also can do with our actual websites themselves to make sure that everything is optimized and that everything performs at par also, given the average internet speeds that we are experiencing in the country. And actually a little bit of tidbit of information here. Did you know that every second of additional loading time can really have an impact in your business results? So just think back to the last time you searched for something online or you visited a website, and how many seconds did it really take for you to lose your patience? You know, sometimes we say it's 2.5 seconds, sometimes we say it's 7 seconds, and sometimes we think, oh, how exag, right? I don't think, that's too fast. Filipinos are so impatient. But if we look at our own behaviors actually, and we count how many seconds it takes for us to lose patience, it's actually very quick these days, given the level of expectations that we already have when engaging with different digital properties and channels. And so we invite you to check out these free tools, which you can use to leverage and assess really your mobile site's performances. So we have Test My Site on the left-hand side, which tests how fast your site loads using, let's say, 4G or 3G connections. While Page Speed Insights will tell you which pages and scripts, or let's say which images are causing the slowdown. So for those that aren't very tech savvy, myself included, this is a great tool to have, which you can share with your developers to pinpoint. These are sort of the pain points, and these are the things that we need to address. The best part is that it takes less than a minute for the tool to run and deliver the results to you. And at the end of the day, really, it's not just about only messaging and speed, but it's important that we recognize that it's all really part and parcel of providing a more satisfying customer experience online for our consumers. And the goal should really be an omni-channel experience wherein the same level of helpfulness and trust that we're able to establish offline be seamlessly translated and provided as well through our online channels, to be able to mirror that experience for Filipinos, regardless of where they are on this path to purchase. Yes, and so I want to end our segment this morning with these 3 key takeaways. First, we've talked heavily about digital channels and how they are now mainstream. Many of us previously perceived this to be a thing of the future, but it's really vital that we recognize its evolved role in our lives today and how this is really something that will be sustained in the behaviors of Filipinos moving forward. Second, we talk about digital becoming more than just a way to communicate today, more than just a way to communicate to your audiences, but actually as a growth driver for business. This is no longer just an additional channel or a nice to have, right? But one that can really play a more substantial role in driving business strategy forward. And third, It's very important also to recognize that having a helpfulness mindset and continuously striving to build trust will help us secure current and future business outcomes also. It's high time that we think about our omni-channel strategies to drive stronger, more integrated user experiences across online and offline, as your front door has actually now turned digital. So this slide actually concludes my presentation, and I encourage you all to check out Think with Google. So just type Think with Google on your browsers for more information on our economy report and other interesting case studies that you may find helpful on your path to digital or this discovery to digital. Stay tuned as well, as we will soon be sharing and externalizing the full extent of our research into the changing financial perspectives and priorities of Filipinos today, from where this quotation is actually taken from. And allow me to read this in conclusion. So it is vital to rethink the relationship that brands play in people's lives and reimagine our role in helping Filipinos achieve their deeper financial aspirations. So we hope you found this session insightful and relevant, and I do hope that you were able to maximize some of these free tools that we've shared as well in your path to digital. Thank you so much for your time, and I wish you all a happy Thursday morning.
Thank you, Carissa. That was really a very insightful, relevant, and an eye-opener for all of us with regards to the technological advancements that Google, particularly Google Philippines, is now having. And we really got a good balance here from a journalist point of view, from Starring Davila, and your presentation more focused on Google's innovations in the financial sector. Now, this time, let us hear, before we go to the Q&A portion, let us hear this time and listen to the president of GMA Films.
I'll introduce.
Sorry, Mark.
I'll introduce probably Annette first.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so again, thank you. Thank you again, Carissa, for that. Thank you for sharing again all of those trends and new habits. So at this point, as Wilma mentioned, I would like to introduce our reactor who will join the panel, Attorney Ana Teresa Gozon Valdez. Attorney Annette will have 5 to 7 minutes to present the reaction and insights about the topic, the role of media in reshaping the future, after which the open forum will follow. Attorney Annette is the programming consultant to the chairman or CEO of GMA Network, where she has been a director since 2000 and concurrently serves as president of GMA Films. She's also the president and treasurer of CityNet Network Marketing and Productions and a trustee of GMA Kapuso Foundation. Attorney Annette is a junior partner in Belo Gozon, Elma Parel, Asuncion, and Lucila, and is an associate professor in the University of the Philippines College of Law, where she teaches taxation and legal history. Attorney Annette obtained her Bachelor of Laws degrees from the University of the Philippines, where she graduated cum laude, and her Master of Laws from Harvard University. To moderate the discussion, may I call back again Ms. Wilma Miranda, Managing Partner of Inventor Miranda and Associates, who is also the Media Affairs Committee Chair of FINEX. Ladies, the Zoom floor is yours. Annette and Wilma, let's start with Attorney Annette with the reaction to the presentations earlier. Attorney Annette, welcome.
Yes, thank you. Good morning to everyone. So the two presentations were such cohesive presentations, and I would just like to give a short reaction to both. First, to Carissa's presentation. Well, this whole digital realm and the new media platforms that we have now can really do a lot of good and has already shown us that it can promote a lot of good. For example, digital services has been able to fuel the growth of users and their businesses. We have information available at our fingertips at the click of a gadget. This new digital frontier has also been able to provide a lot of new jobs to people, especially during this pandemic. And a lot of social media users have been able to use also this platform to further their crusades and campaigns for the good. And in the entertainment realm, we have seen the rise of these new social media stars, the YouTube stars, which really entertain a lot of people now. However, not all users may have the correct motivation, nor do they have probably the proper moral compass in using these new platforms. So this leads me to react to Karen Davila's initial presentation. So when she said that there's a difference between traditional media and the new media, especially social media, I believe that it is because traditional media has already been determined by the government to be a sphere imbued with public interest, and therefore it is subject to regulation and censorship. Of course, this has been a touchy issue in the past because everyone would want to have freedom of speech and freedom of press. But for me personally, I have always believed, in accordance with our constitution, that freedom of speech and of the press is never absolute. It cannot be prone to abuse. The limits of freedom of speech and press is when we already want to harm others, when we want to use it for sinister purposes, or when the motivations behind the use of free speech will lead to chaos or problems relating to our social, cultural, and political spheres. So I believe that it is also very important for us to realize that social media and these new developing medias are really imbued with public interest. And probably our lawmakers should really think about that and do what they can as soon as we can, if we can even keep up with the changes in these new medias. But in the meantime, wherein there is no strong regulatory bodies governing these media, I believe that it is the responsibility of everyone, especially the adults and the parents, to really educate the users of the social, especially social media. When they filter the news, they have to realize that not all news that you see in social media is real or is true. There are a lot of fake news that proliferates, and I believe that the reason for that is there is too much reliance on outside fact checking. I think we have to educate the users to be able to really trace the sources of news before they really share and believe what they see on social media. Um, Also, in social media, unlike traditional media, people use a lot of fake accounts, and it's really hard to trace the real source of what is put in on social media versus traditional media, wherein you know the source. You can see on TV, on radio, you know who is the one speaking, the one broadcasting, and in print, there's always the byline of the author. But in social media, especially like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, there are a lot of trolls, as Karen mentioned, and it is very hard to trace who these people really are. We already have new laws like cyberspace laws on libel, but it is very hard to really trace who is the owner of a particular account, a new media account. So it is very imperative for us, for our country, and for our lawmakers to really try to look for ways in order to regulate the possible abuses that that social media users or new media users can do. And because, as we all know, whatever we see will affect how we are as a people. It will shape culture, it will shape our political views, it will shape our social views. And I think that is the importance of media. So my take is we really have, in the meantime, where we are still in the process of discovering how to regulate the area of new media, we have to each be responsible in our own way, in our own households, in our own spheres of influence, to be able to really try to educate the proper of the people around us on the proper use and proper understanding of social media.
Okay. Thank you, Attorney Annette. And we are privileged to hear from somebody who is also one of the leaders in one of the media giants here in the Philippines. And if you want to ask a question from Carissa, I would like to give you the privilege to ask a question from Carissa.
Yes. So I would like to know how you view censorship in a way for new media platforms, or even for companies like Google, in terms of filtering the information that the people can access.
Thank you so much, Attorney Anna, for that question. And very interesting, and I think very timely also. I think more recently in the news, it's been the removal of medical misinformation as a result of COVID and various fake news about different medical misinformation. And really, what we do have on the platform are very strong community guidelines in terms of what can be posted, really all in an effort to really protect the users and protect also that the right information is surfaced. Very recently, we've actually expanded, let's say, our medical misinformation policies on the platform with new guidelines on, let's say, in particular, in this particular case, on currently administered vaccines that are approved and confirmed to be safe and effective by local health authorities and the World Health Organization. And in a similar manner, we apply the same logic across various areas, right? So when we talk about news, when we talk about politics, these community guidelines are really there to protect the users as well, and to make sure that we're able to maintain a safe space on YouTube. And so that applies. Actually, our community guidelines can be referred to online. And so if there is a direct complaint in relation to a particular video that's posted, then this is acted on with utmost importance internally. And we make sure that we're able to take a look at it to validate, in fact, if there is wrongful information that's promulgated, because we want to make sure that our users are protected.
Thank you, Carissa, and thank you that Google has such filtering tool to be able to really filter what is fake or not. And as a follow-up question to Attorney Annette's question, there is such thing as an application or a website called Snopes.com. So other people, you were suggesting to have a due diligence, no, to be able to make sure that the information they got are really not fake news. So do you think Snopes.com is also effective, going to the area or to the website? Have you heard about it?
I'm sorry, Attorney Will. I'm not familiar with the website.
Okay.
I don't think I heard you quite properly.
Usually that is the site which I go to. Anyway, another question for Ms. Carissa. You mentioned in your presentation that Filipinos prefer to continue using digital services like e-commerce even in a post-pandemic world. Is this something that applies in the area of digital financial services as well? And how can Google as a media play a part in this area?
Thank you for that question, Wilma. Actually, very interesting. A very good question also at that. And I think we referenced that also in our earlier presentation where we talk about the sustainability, particularly in the realm of financial services, because we are seeing significant strides made on the end of the consumer. So these different consumer habits that are being reshaped now, we see businesses coming online as well to meet this demand. So if let's say users want to be able to check out online, users want to be able to do their groceries as an example. I think over the past 18 months, that's the most activity that we've seen also in the e-commerce space, bringing these essentials online. We see also financial institutions really underpinning this as a capability, right? Being able to provide that, being able to provide an avenue for them to be able to check out and complete these transactions. And at the same time, we see a lot of strides also on the end of regulation. We see a lot of activity on the side of BSP. And really, it is all of these efforts that allow us to sort of theorize that, in addition to the research that we've been able to put together, that this is really a behavior that will be sustained on the way forward. And I think the second part of your question, right, was sort of Google as a media partner playing a role in this area. And the way we see it is that Google really is able to bridge that gap between consumer and business, not only by being able to provide that platform. However, at the same time, there's quite a lot of work that we do with DTI and with MSMEs. We have an MSME caravan as well, which we educate about Google My Business, which is the free tool that I referenced earlier, which allows small business owners to really be able to provide a digital storefront for their businesses. The very first premise, right? If you search for, let's say, as an example, cookies near me, I was craving for cookies earlier, then that's something that can come out and you can actually see a storefront, right? Regardless of how big your business is, right? To be able to capture and meet that demand also online. It's helpful on both fronts, right? At the same time, we help the MSMEs, but at the same time, you're also helping your consumers that are searching for information. Imagine, right, looking back into, the last thing you may have searched for and how frustrating it is when you don't find the right information off the bat. And so that's something that we want to be able to help fuel in that ecosystem as well.
Okay, thank you, Carissa. As a follow-up question to the question that I have a while ago, many financial institutions have long invested in building their branch presence throughout the years. In the shift to digital banking and applications, what do you see happening to physical bank branches? We've invested a lot on the physical bank branches. Will Google be able to hasten the shift of these banks to digital banking?
Yeah, sorry. I think the mic got cut a little bit there. Can you repeat the last line, Wilma? Sorry.
There's a shift now to digital banking. Can you see a future where there are no more physical bank branches? And will Google hasten the shift of these banks to digital banking instead of opening new physical branches?
Thank you for that question, Wilma. And the way we perceive it actually is that bank branches, at least for the foreseeable future, will still really have a strong role to play in that financial ecosystem. But what we do emphasize, particularly to the partners that we work with, is that it's very important to establish and have a clear vision and strategy of the different roles that each of your channels play, right? Your offline presence, your online presence as well. It's very clear to be able to have a different strategy for each and identify the unique roles that they all play and the helpfulness that we're able to provide Filipinos offline should be able to translate online as well. I think we've talked about it in brief, but it's really high time that we think about this omni-channel presence that we talk about very often, which is really a means of driving a more integrated user experience across these different channels and these different properties. So when in the future, right, and post this COVID lockdown, post this situation, and you already have these sustained shifts to digital, but at the same time, people go to a bank branch, the same message should apply, the same user experience should apply as well. It should really be a more integrated and holistic approach. At least that's our take on it in that form.
Okay, there's a question here in the Q&A box. Does Google have applications that small and medium enterprise can use to run their business? I think you mentioned a while ago about Yahoo Business. I think it's also applicable for SMEs, right?
Yes, thank you, Edith. I think I see that question from Miss Edith on the chat box, and that's exactly right. We do invite you to check out Google My Business, which is something that is also very useful, actually, I think more useful for small enterprises as well, being that it helps you get started. in really building your online presence.
Okay, I'd like to ask a question also to the reactor, if it's okay, Attorney Annette.
Yes.
Okay, will GMA Films continue to use the digital platform even after the pandemic?
Well, yes, we've seen how it has an incremental effect on audience because I think that there's a difference between the traditional moviegoers and the new watchers of movies in the digital sphere. So it's quite complementary to each other and not really, it will not really compete directly.
Mhm. So post-pandemic, we can still see physical cinemas. I mean,
Yes.
people going to
Well,
cinema.
I believe so because personally, it's been 2 years since I haven't been inside a movie theater, and the experience of watching a movie on the big screen is really different from
Yeah,
watching shows
I
or a
agree.
movie online.
Yes, I agree with you. Even before the pandemic, I used to watch also in cinemas, in physical cinemas. Anyway, one more question for Attorney Annette. Um, do you think, in your own thoughts, how has digital media affected the psychological and spiritual lives of people? Of course, it has affected physical, but how has it affected the psychological and spiritual lives of people, particularly for Filipinos?
I think during this pandemic, the access of people to new media, especially in the digital sphere, really helped them a lot. I've seen a lot of proliferation of churches having their services online, and I've heard that these churches have been able to expand their base now during the pandemic compared to before the pandemic. So I'm very gratified that a lot of people have been um, seeking solace in the comfort of their faith during this time, because I believe that in these difficult times, there's no one you can really rely on or run to except God. In my personal experience naman, I have been using social media to really do my part. I'm a Christian, so I really try to spread the word of God through social media, because I believe that unlike traditional media, wherein um, you really broadcast to the masses, in social media, it's quite personal. So
Mhm.
the approach and the reception to whatever you post on social media has a much stronger impact on a personal basis
Yeah.
than traditional media. And I think that um, people are a lot of people are really good. A lot of people have the right moral compass, and a lot of people use these new media for the good.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, yun nga, of course, there's
Okay.
always a few that might abuse it.
Mhm.
So that's why you really need to educate people and really have at least some regulations in place in order to curb these potential abuses.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you because I think statistics shows now that some churches or many of the churches have more audience ever now than before, because before they used to be confined in one space, but now they can reach globally and go viral,
Yeah.
right? So many people are really turning to the religious beliefs in times of this pandemic because they feel helpless. It's a war with an invisible enemy. And I think we have one more question for Carissa. This question is about, again, going back to digital banking, and we've seen that no, there are banks which have really advanced technologically, but we can count with our fingers those who have already features for deposits online. You don't have to go to the bank anymore to queue for your messenger to deposit your checks. And there are also banks which have more advanced feature in the sense that they can do some other features like bills payments are usually regular thing, but payments to regular agencies like the BIR, government agencies, I mean SSS, PhilHealth, no, they can do this. But there are only few banks which can really accept deposits. Do you think more banks will go into advanced technological features in 2022? Because as of now, I only know one bank who can accept my deposit online.
Thank you for that question, Wilma. And I apologize. I think my daughter is starting a band downstairs. I hope you can't hear the noise.
Yeah, it's okay.
But yeah, there's a noise behind. But actually, I think now more than ever, a lot of banks are rethinking that, right? Are rethinking their digital strategies. They've been there for quite some time. I think a lot of different financial institutions, not just banks in particular, not just traditional banks in particular, um, have also, invested heavily in this strategy. But I think now more than ever, we are seeing that we're not going back to a business as usual anymore. I think this pandemic has lasted longer than any of us initially foresaw. But then at least now, I think we see that a lot of people are taking the next steps and making these strides towards being able to capture these consumer needs. Actually, they are consumer needs, right? As you mentioned, there are only a handful that you're able to do and perform these financial transactions with. And I think that's something, it'll really shape the way forward for financial transactions in the years to come. And I think more and more financial institutions will soon come on board as well with these new capabilities. The referencing back into that slide, right? That history of banking in the future, maybe the same can be said, right? That how did I ever live without this, as an example?
Yeah, before ATM withdrawal is a new thing to us, and we're so scared to use that. And now we're into depositing online. So some people are still scared to do that. Last question, I think, because we're running out of time. You were mentioning a while ago in your presentation that in the Philippines, 54% in non-metro areas are using digital media. Um, and 46% only in Metro Manila. Is that a contradiction? Could that be a contradiction to what they say that internet users are less in rural areas or outside of Metro Manila? But there are more,
Um,
using digital media outside of Metro Manila.
Just to clarify that particular slide, I think, Wilma, where we showed that 54% were coming from non-metro areas. This was in reference to the new digital service users that came on board in 2020. So if you can imagine, the initial base already for Metro was already higher. So we see that of those that came on board, representing 37% of those that we are seeing utilizing digital services online today, 54 are actually coming from non-metro. So we are seeing that it's not just the behavior in Metro Manila, but we're onboarding more and more, even outside key cities nationwide.
Okay, thank you so much. We're running out of time, and it has been a very enlightening and informative Q&A discussion we have this morning. I'm so glad that we have both you, Google Philippines and GMA Films, and of course, ABS-CBN as our media giants guests for today. And now may turn over the rest of the proceedings to our MC for this morning, Attorney Mark Goriseta. Attorney Mark?
Thank you, ladies, for a very lively and informative discussion. Thank you. So at this point, can we call on FINEX Director Ronald or Ned Buseco for his closing remarks? Hi, Ned.
Hi, thank you, Mark. We learned some very important lessons from today's program from our distinguished speakers, Ms. Karen, Ms. Carissa, and our reactor attorney, Anna. In the first session, she emphasized that we need to develop the ability to understand media, since it is a crucial skill that we all need to understand the way it influences and plays out in everything that we actually do, the way it influences our values, our ideas, and eventually the way we think and behave. Media is a real influence in our lives, and as pointed out by Ms. Karen, there's a dark side that we need to be aware of, to decode and to distinguish between disinformation, misinformation, or propaganda. Ms. Karen concluded by asking, can social media influence and shape our future as a nation? And the answer is yes. She emphasized that we need to be bold and fearless to do what is right, especially in the face of media that could challenge our integrity of thought. The role of institutional media is more important than ever, and she describes it as an existential challenge facing our nation. In the second session, Ms. Carissa talked about the Great Reset, from disruption to transformation in shaping the new frontier post-COVID, and how Google can help us manage our brands and survive and thrive in this new world. She provided some very critical data on the growth of the internet. I'd like to mention a few, but this is all recorded on YouTube, by the way, which is a Google company. So I'd like to mention that 70% of our population are online, 37% in the Philippines are service consumers or transacting, and this is all throughout the nation. Ms. Carissa emphasized that the great digital migration of 2020 presents a once in a lifetime or once in a generation opportunity for financial services. Again, she mentioned some data, some very, very important data, which I would like you to review on YouTube. Commercial transactions grew by 6%, and there's a preference for digital banking that has emerged across all Filipino banking segments. In fact, 80% preferred online transactions versus 20% offline. And over the past year, 60% increase in more searches for financial matters, right? She also provided free Google tools that perhaps our businesses, our SMEs in particular, should take advantage of. Google My Business, where businesses can kick off basic websites, search optimization, create store listings, build customer loyalty, and a form of analytics. Google Trends, trying to understand different consumer trends and needs based on Google searches. All this while emphasizing safety and trust to improve user experiences. She emphasized that digital helpfulness translates to business opportunities, and the reverse is true, that the lack of it will make you lose customers. Our reactor stated that social media is really imbued with public interest. It is very important for us to promote media literacy to everyone. It is our responsibility. The guiding questions for media literacy that we need to ask are: who created this message? What creative techniques are used to attract our attention? How might different people understand the message differently from us? What lifestyle viewpoints are represented or omitted from the message? And why is this being sent? With that, I'd like to pass the mic back to Mark. Mark?
Thank you. Thank you, Ned. Thank you again. We'd like to thank our speakers, Ms. Karen Davila Santa Ana and Ms. Carissa Herrera, our reactor, Attorney Annette Gozon Valdez, and of course, our moderator, our very own Ms. Wilma Miranda. We'd also like to thank our sponsors for this year's conference, our partners, Divina Law, LT Group of Companies, and Union Bank of the Philippines, our platinum sponsors, Aboitiz Equity Ventures Inc., Alliance Global Group Inc., First Philippine Holdings Corporation, NOAA Business Applications, Robinson's Land Corporation, United Auctioneers Inc., and Vista Land and Lifescales Inc. Our diamond sponsors, All Day Supermarket, All Home, Ayala Land Inc., Meralco, and Reyes Takandong and Co. Our knowledge partner, KPMG RG Manabat and Co. Our gold sponsors, Accra Law, Bank of the Philippine Islands, Certec Holdings Philippines Corporation, Converge ICT Solutions Inc., Navarro Ampere and Co., Deloitte Philippines, FTI Consulting Inc., Metrobank Mondenisan Corporation, PNA Grant Thornton, RCBC, San Miguel Corporation, Philippine Shell Petroleum Corporation, SGV & Co., and Philinvest Development Corporation. Our patron sponsors, BDO Unibank Inc., Mega World, Philippine National Bank, Security Bank, and Wilcon Depot, and East West Bank. Also, thank you to our official broadcast partner, ABS-CBN News Channel, and our print media partners, Business Mirror, Business World, The Manila Times, and Daily Tribune. We'd also like to thank everyone again for attending this morning's session, the FINEX Week Conference. We hope that you will continue to participate in the remaining webinars this afternoon and for the last day tomorrow, Friday. Thank you, everyone. Keep safe and healthy. See you soon.
Thank you, Mark. Before we go, can we have a group picture together with our speakers? Can we please request everybody to turn on their videos? And then, of course, can we also have those not in the panel room to open their videos? So, yeah,
Open your cameras po.
Alex, yeah, can you do the
Yeah.
picture?
Okay. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you po. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
so much.
Carissa, thank you. Third
Thank
you.
you.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Ned.
Thank you. Pleasure.
We are Union Bank of the Philippines, the Philippines' best digital bank. In the recent Bank Quality Consumer Survey on retail banks last April, we were ranked number 2 of the most helpful banks in Asia Pacific during the COVID-19 crisis and is the only Philippine bank in the top 20 list. Because of the pandemic, it has become crucial that our products and services quickly adapt to the challenges presented in this new digital normal.
For 15 years, Divina Law has championed dynamic lawyering from provenance to paradigm with unwavering awareness, with passion and faith, and with a clear collective conscience. It is now a legal institution, venerated and recognized by its peers, respected and admired by its competition, cherished and relied upon by its clients. Built under the steadfast vision and hard work of one man, the revered attorney Nilo Divina. Divina Law evolved from a niche law firm to a litigation machine, adequately handling and handily winning cases for some of the largest blue chip clients in the country. Divina Law has a solid, proven reputation, but its evolution and success do not stand on the shoulders of its reputation alone, but also on its constitution and philosophy. To do everything within the bounds of ethics and honored principles, to serve, to delight, to win for the client. Divina Law has always taken upon itself to generate positive results produced in good faith, powered by its collective legal brilliance, and guided by the divine. It is only fitting that what represents this significant milestone is a crystal, a symbol of light, clarity, and solidarity, the very same qualities that brought Divina Law to its current, esteemed stature. We look forward to being the law firm of the progressive present and set on answering the call of an unpredictable tomorrow.
I am Divina Law.
Divina Law at 15. A vision crystallized.
What would their first steps be like if we don't take the first steps to decarbonization now? At First Gen, we've always believed that we can regenerate our environment, going 0% coal and switching to low-carbon energy. The energy company pioneering the transition to renewable energy. First Gen, the first step to a decarbonized and renewed Philippines.
From the beginning, mankind survived by following rules that are measured with faith and made with wisdom. It is written in Genesis chapter 6, verses 15 to 16. This is how you are to build it. The ark is to be 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. Make a roof for it, leaving below the roof an opening 1 cubit high all around. Put a door in the side of the ark and make lower, middle, and upper decks. Capitalizing on the historical learnings of Noah on how the ark was built with precise instructions, Noah Business Applications has been meticulously designed to deliver substantial results that comply to the financial and operational requirements of various companies across different industries. The success of Noah Business Applications is rooted from its strong, proven, and sustainable implementation methodologies from appreciation session to knowledge sharing. Noah conducted 4 levels of tests before he let all the creatures out of the ark after the great flood. All these tests were written in the Genesis chapter 8 verses 6 through 12. These tests are paralleled with Noah Business Applications' 4 level of test, namely developers testing, system integration testing, quality control testing, and user acceptance testing. Today, Noah Business Applications advances the roles of enterprise resources planning from financials, financial consolidation, warehousing, production, banking, distribution, forecasting, planning and budgeting, treasury and loan management, realty, human resources management system, procurement management, project management, customer relation management, mobility, analytics reporting and dashboard, and data management. Noah, advancing the role of ERP.
For almost 3 decades, Robinson's Land Corporation has grown with you as an industry leader that continues to uphold its legacy in the property landscape, alongside its equally successful affiliates spread throughout the nation. As a subsidiary of one of the largest conglomerates in the Philippines, JG Summit Holdings Incorporated, Robinson's Land establishes competitive names in various industries that paved its way to becoming a trusted brand in the country.
People don't just build a home, they build a life. And Vista Land is with you in building a future worth living. As one of the leading integrated property developers and the largest home builder in the country, with over 40 years of real estate experience, Vista Land enables Filipinos to fulfill their dreams through low-cost and affordable housing units, mid-range priced properties, high-end luxury residences, and condo developments. These developments are located near prime areas that allow residents to enjoy their ideal lifestyle in their own communities. Through the years, Vistaland has become the country's preferred brand of housing, and we will continue creating communities that will help Filipinos build a future worth living.
The customer is different now. Today's normal has changed. It's all about convenient, fast, safe, and reliable. The new normal is digital. In a time of adversity and uncertainty, opportunities were made clear. We needed to be agile, adaptable, and resilient. It was time to truly ride the wave of digital change. Even before the pandemic swept the globe, All Home was already laying the foundation for its e-commerce infrastructure. In 2020, All Home did a digital pivot. Adversity became the catalyst for rapid change, and adaptability became our key asset. Throughout the pandemic, All Home leaned into true transformation, embracing the customer's new digital-first mindset. We focused on where the customers are. But more than that, we set course to maximize our wide physical networks to amplify our growing digital strength. In a world that changed too much, too fast, we remained resolute. We remained resilient in the new normal by rising to opportunity and riding the wave of inevitable change. Because of that, we were able to honor our commitments. We were able to deliver results.
For every memory, a special place.
The power to move a nation forward takes root in the productivity of business and industries. As your Meralco corporate partner, we understand the role power plays in fueling the growth of your business, how it moves, how it brings things to life, how it drives your business, and ultimately, how it plays a role in building a nation. We have evolved from being a power distribution company to a total energy solutions provider.
We value the fact that Meralco has taken a very proactive approach to customer service and given us the ability to provide reliable and sustainable services to our customers, effectively tying our relationship with Meralco to our relationship with our customers.
There is power in partnerships. Partner with us today.
Introducing Converge FiberX Time of Day. Personalize your plan to meet your internet demands at set times of the day. With this dynamic technology, you can get higher speeds when you need it the most. Experience better with Converge.
Life is complex. Everything interconnected, in constant flux. A simple shift in focus can reveal hidden issues and unearth new opportunities. At Deloitte, we make it our priority to look again and to dig deeper beneath the surface, analyzing the many intricate issues that businesses face, providing insights that help turn risks into opportunities, disruption into growth, information into transformation, helping our clients focus on the heart of what really matters. And with these insights, even the most complex problems can become new possibilities. This is what we do.